Right. KUSH is ravaging Sierra Leone. There are reports of young people harming themselves and others after taking the drug. KUSH has led hundreds of youth to injure themselves, with others losing their lives on account of using the substance. It is evident that the law enforcement agencies and other bodies have clamped down on importers and peddlers of the drug. But those efforts have yielded little success. It is, however, clear that humans consuming KUSH drug are at high risk of acting abnormally and even dying from the substance. The drug has numerous, street names. Some call it Bliss, Black Mamba, Blaze, Bombay Blue, Fake Weed, and Legal Weed. Of all the street names, two of them stand out: Spice and K2. Medical staff say about 90% of the male admissions to the Central Psychiatric Ward are due to KUSH use. Police are battling to win the war against the drug. The Inspector General of Police, William Fayaselu, said the influx of KUSH in the country has become a cause for concern, especially at a time when the government places premium on human capital development. Appeals Court Judge Justice Monfred Sise said the fight against drugs should not be left to the judiciary alone, but the executive arm of government should play an integral role. The substances are cheap and the youth are going in for them. With KUSH use spreading rapidly like wildfire across the country, with ever younger users being exposed to it, tonight we shall discuss the drug and ask whether Sierra Leone can stop the march of this dangerous addictive high. My name is Samuel Wise Bangura and this is AYV on Sunday. All right, welcome. In case you're watching us on AYV channel 33, listening to us on radio FM 101.7, or following us on all our different social media platforms, you're welcome. As always, we do solicit your views. Share them with us on the issues being discussed. All you have to do, move over to the AYV News Facebook page, drop your comments, drop your questions there. We would find time to go through some of them during the conversation. As always, I bring a star-studded panel of people who are in touch with the topics we always discuss here. And tonight we are looking at the threats, the dangers being posed by the use of the illicit drug, KUSH. So on my panel, I have the country's Minister of Youth Affairs, Mohammed Oman Bangura. Good evening and welcome to the show, Mr. Minister.
Good evening, Samuel. Good evening, Sierra Leoneans.
I have the Executive Secretary for Sierra Leone We Want, Moses Conteh, Esquire. Good evening, Moses, and welcome to AYV on Sunday.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
Ibrahim Kagbo, the Public Relations Officer of the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency. Good evening.
Good evening, Samuel, and thanks for having me here.
All right, Dr. Siddiqui Mansare from the Ministry of Health. Good evening and welcome, Doc.
Good evening, Samuel, and good evening, viewers.
All right. It's quite frustrating what we're seeing on social media. But from in the last 2 years, we've seen conscious efforts from the media raising concerns. Last year, the BBC Africa Eye launched an investigation into the use of KUSH. We saw what that brought out. The documentary was done by Tyson Conteh. And I spoke with Tyson when that documentary was done. I had an interview with him. And his expressions were very much alarming in the sense that what he got from the field and what he put out was a serious threat to the country. So I'm going to start off with the Minister of Youth Affairs. Unfortunately, this comes at a time when you champion our issues as young people, and we are the victims in this particular case. First off, what does this bring to the government? The fact that this is all over the place. Young people are losing their future. Young people appear to be that they do not have anything to hold on to anymore except KUSH now.
Yeah, thank you very much, and thanks, Samuel, Sierra Leoneans. I mean, it's unfortunate that the norms, values, the principles that we want to celebrate as Sierra Leoneans. And most of these principles, those norms are no longer there. If you ask, what does it mean to us as Sierra Leoneans? I mean, it's unfortunate. I mean, there are things we are celebrating that are not worth celebrating. You know, sometimes young people, society are celebrating mediocrity over excellence. It's not strange to me, Samuel, because I'm one person that believes for anything that we are doing as a government, as a ministry, it has to be scientific based.
Right.
You don't take decision based on rumor, based on pictures, based on what you see, but it has to be scientific based. If you go to the report, the Youth at Risk report that we got 2018, and you go to the current youth policy, page 24 of the youth policy, the use of drugs and substance abuse, it stands out clearly as one of the 9 challenges that we are battling as a nation. And we've made tremendous efforts, like you rightly said, to see how society could accept this and how we should deal with it, and not to look at it from a government perspective.
Right.
That is to say, we as a nation, as a country, we have roles, we have responsibility from different facets. Our parents, our teachers, our media houses.
Right.
Look at this issue, let's treat it as a societal issue rather than just a youth issue. If we limit it to a youth issue, then we're trivializing it. It has a security threat. Right. It has a health threat. It has a generational threat too. So we need to come together as a team, as a society. We have our role to play as a government. It's clear in the policy.
Right.
Our investment development partners, what are we doing? If you're working on the youth sector, you should work with the youth policy. And it's no secret. Last International Youth Day, you had the UN resident coordinator telling you this policy happens to be one of the most consultative and the most participatory policy in Africa. If so, young people's voice are in that document to say the use of drugs, and KUSH stands up there. 2 years ago plus, it stands out. Today, you're talking about KUSH. 2 weeks ago, I'll tell you about SPAC 5. Yeah, so what we are saying, we owe it to our generation. We owe it to this current generation that you have a role to play. Mr. Moya has his own role to play. Our parents have their own role to play. Maybe the young people that you're seeing outside there with those videos, you think those are the threat. No. Yes, they are, but I'll tell you, it goes beyond that. When you look at the fact, a few minutes ago, I was at Oloshoro and Tigopol. Tigopol is just after Frabe College. You go down there, is a slum, around 3, 4. And this evening, I was at Oloshoro, conveniently sitting there just to get my facts right. What we are saying, the current issue should be treated as a societal issue, and we should put all hands on deck to see how we can salvage this. And let me remind you and every listener that the current youth bulge is not like a wave that comes and goes. It's here with us, and there's nothing we can do about it. That we have more young people today than ever before. If that's the case, generation society should focus on how do we keep up to expectation, how do we solve young people's challenges, how do we think young in our homes, in our schools, in our different areas. Then we know what it is like when you're talking about the youth bulge. It's here to stay.
Right. Let me quickly ask this question. You know, before now, we've been fighting drugs abuse for the longest of time with the fire brigade approach, a knee-jerk approach. We saw when the issue of Pampas, the DAPA, when that came up. We saw when people started using the chemical from the exhaust of a car. Many young people feel at a time that, okay, we'll not get money, but we'll get way for. I mean, there are innovative ways we can actually invent how they do this thing, and then begin to take Evo stick as drugs. So, and we've seen all of these things. But like you mentioned, the approach has always been, what has government done to address some of these concerns? Is it time, with what is really happening now in the country, is it time we take this as a national emergency, that the future of this country is at the brink, How do we, as a nation, come together, the government, private sector, the media, everybody come on board to address this problem that is threatening the states?
Yeah, Samuel, declaring a state of emergency has to do with fact, has to do with figures, has to do with data. Even as we speak, Sierra Leone hasn't got data to say 10 out of every 5 individuals, 2 out of every 10 individuals in Sierra, young people in Sierra Leone are taking KUSH. There's no data to that effect. And you know our government, I mean, we deal with data. And I always tell people, for every youth program that we are focusing, that we're implementing, every decision that we are taking, it has to be scientific based. What we are doing now is that let's have the data, and it's ongoing.
Right.
We collect the data, we have the stakeholders. You have line ministry, a few days ago I was with the Minister of Health, the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Attorney General, Minister of Justice to see the laws, and other line ministries to say, this is the fact, this is the data, how do we deal with it? Then it but fits to declare state of emergency if necessary.
Right.
But unless we have the data, we have the scientific figures with us. What we are seeing on social media, yes, it's discouraging, it's appalling. I mean, no Sierra Leonean, no minister will sit and see what is happening now. You think, oh, it's a joke. But let's not forget, let's go globally. Let's go within Africa. Check the data. South Africa alone. There are some of these things we see on social media, young people explore. Some of these ideas, these creative ideas, they got on social media.
Right.
So what we are saying, whether I'm declaring, as you ask, let's have it right, let's dissect it, let's have it scientifically, let's have the data on our hands, and we'll do the needful.
Okay. I'm going to ask the technical operator that to just give us a video of some of the youth who fell victim of KUSH. Whilst I asked Dr. Mansari, I mean, is there a clear understanding of what KUSH is really? I mean, what are the chemicals involved in that drug? Do we know at this point?
Thank you, Samuel. Once again, thank you, viewers. I'm actually Dr. Siddiqui Mansari, and I'm also the PRO of the Union Doctors Association of Sierra Leone. All right. For now, there are no specific evidences to show that these are the constituents of KUSH. However, KUSH itself belongs to an illegal drug that is derived from a plant that belongs to a family of plants known as cannabis. There are 3 broad categories or classes of this cannabis. There are many strains though. We have the cannabis sativa, which is this marijuana. Yes, and we have the cannabis indica, which is the KUSH. Yes, and we have the cannabis hybrid, which is mixture of the 2 of them. So cannabis indica is actually grown in India and is being imported illegally to Sierra Leone. So the problem is cannabis indica, the one that's imported in Sierra Leone, is a synthesized cannabis indica. And being synthesized, it is like about 10 times more potent than marijuana. Yes, it is known to have, the cannabis in general as a family, they are known to have an active ingredient that is known as the THC, that's the tetrahydrocannabinol. Yes, that's a substance that affects the brain. It binds to certain receptors in the brain, are responsible for certain functions. So when they bind to these receptors, there are tendencies that to cause some of these things they cause to the victims. So it is not clear as to how it's actually or correctly affect the brain or the body in general.
Because I was just going to ask, I mean, what we get to see when the videos are shared with us, is this robotic attitude or behavior of the victims? We do not really get to, we just get to see how they behave, how they act. It's very clear on the screen. I mean, so what really causes that?
So like I said, when these substances bind to these receptors in the brain, they are psychoactive substances. That would say they are very much effective in the brain, working on the brain. When they bind to some of these receptors in the brain, certain motor functions, for instance, let me say the brain is ordered like a control system for the body. For instance, there is an area in the brain that controls speech. There's an area in the brain that controls the way we walk. So if there is any harm or any damage to some of these areas in the brain, the functions it performs to the body are being inhibited. So KUSH is known to produce what we call a reduced psychomotor activity. That will say the functions of the brain on the muscles they are being reduced. It's also known to cause symptoms like depression, drowsiness, sleeping. That's what we see on the phone, we see on videos, on phones and all. So once KUSH is taken, these effects are bound to occur. Like I said earlier, how it affects the brain is not yet clearly known. However, it's mimic some of the drugs around, like of course alcohol. As when one misuses alcohol, is prone to some of these things. And one also misuses some of the drugs we use around, like the opioids. I remember opioids drug. I remember there are times people are misusing tramadol. Well, it's still ongoing, although somehow curtailed now. So when we misuse some of these drugs, we tend to shoot out these functions.
Before I come to how we tend to clamp down on importers, peddlers, and even those who use or consume these drugs, Moses, let me ask the question. What's your assessment of the situation at the moment, young people consuming these harmful drugs and with what they are displaying for the future of this country?
Thank you so much, Mr. Bankura, for that question. It's sad to see compatriots, fellow compatriots, young compatriots, waste their lives in the manner in which they are doing as at present. It is sad that society is failing. So many structures are failing us. I must say, like you rightly mentioned, that this is a national emergency. It is an issue that needs urgent action. That is what you mean when you talk about an emergency. Because if we do not do that, it means we're going to lose the people who should take after those who are older now. And I must dare to say that we are in the African Youth Month, and in the African Youth Month, we have a lot of things we're looking at. The 4 E's and the H. H has to deal with the health. We have to do with education, employment, entrepreneurship, engagement, plus health. Health is crucial. That's why we're here talking about KUSH and how it is affecting young people. And the fact that it's causing problems, it's affecting the well-being of young people. It's affecting how they think and how prepared they are to lead the nation. It means it's a problem. Aspiration 6 of Agenda 2063 is clear that the agenda for Africa's development has to squarely focus on development of its human resource. And it is relying heavily on its youthful resources. Now, come to Sierra Leone. A huge chunk of the population is made up of young people. Now, assessing the situation. And if we have a lot of these young people take to drugs, if we have a lot of these people take to drugs, it means we will not have the good professionals who will be there in our hospitals. We will not have the good professionals who will be there in the forces. I mean the army and the police. We don't have sane people who would even take responsible positions like the minister is taking today. So it's a problem. It's something we have to take action on immediately. I would also say that the law is clear on all of this, and this is why they must invoke. You don't need data to take action on this.
Just before we get into the law, before we talk about the law, Moses, have we really understood what really pushes young people to take to these drugs? Because before now, many would attribute it to the economic crisis across the country, the globe. But looking at people who have jobs, also taking to drugs, I mean, people who are considered to actually secure us taking to drugs, then what really pushes people to go into taking drugs, especially the KUSH now?
It's serious, and I had to note causes of these things. What would be the push factor? Why would somebody take to drugs at this material time?
Right.
Now, we have established that depression is real. Depression on every front. After the coronavirus came, a lot of people were at home. You know, many people wanted to take to certain things that will make them forget the suffering. And one thing I also want to state is, people are suffering a lot. No matter where you are, even if you are earning. And I tell you, the videos we've seen, the sorts of people we've seen are people who probably do not earn that much. Okay, the videos we've seen of forces, people in the force, and you see those that have come out clearly. Also, well, you have that particular category. There are others, young people, where because of peer influence, maybe they've not been properly engaged. This is where I also say that the civic education department has a role to play. How are we involving the fact that we're having these emerging issues? Drug is now an emerging issue. How do we ensure that in the civic education curriculum, we have something that has to do with teaching the young people the effects of drugs? Now, the doctor will agree with me that if you start to take drugs when you're not 30, when the brain is not fully formed, you affect your whole being, because you affect the effectiveness of the brain for you to think well, for you to act well. And if somebody who is young starts to take drugs as KUSH at a very early stage, you destroy what you call your central nervous system, which you need to respond appropriately to things around you. When the central nervous system, which is like the powerhouse of the whole body, which controls the body, which sends sensors, which makes you to respond appropriately, is destroyed, then you will not be able to act. Frustration is on the increase. A lot of people are frustrated, no matter what they do, no matter the station of their work, whether they're working or not. Unemployment is on the increase. This is a problem, and it's not just in Sierra Leone. A lot of other areas where when we do research, you search about these things, you find out that when people are unemployed, they don't have things to do, they go and sit somewhere where they're idle, they take to these things. Peer pressure. We should not allow our young people who watch movies to take certain decisions for themselves. So like the minister was saying, I agree with him, parents have a role to play too. Society has a role to play to ensure that they keep on conscientizing the young people to refrain from taking drugs. We must heighten education on the effects of these ones. Like medical, I was speaking with some people from the pharmacy world, how they would come together, the people who are professionals, to go to schools, because now let us catch them young. Go to schools, talk to them about the effects, because to them it's like, I am enjoying my life. You know, it's bliss, man. When man not taking 1, 2, 3 things, it make man think fine. You know, it's beyond that. That's what their colleagues tell them. That it's nice, but take this thing, they make you able to work well. So whether it's for sexual pleasure, it's for any other thing, it make you work fine. But they do not know the effects of these things. So our medical practitioners have a role to play in that, to ensure that they educate the young people as to the dangers of taking these very dangerous drugs.
Let me quickly hear from Ibrahim. You know, we've for the longest of time we've been battling with drugs. How do we clamp down? How do we ensure we arrest the situation? We've seen the police have been battling to clamp down on importers, peddlers, consumers, but it appears we're not getting it right, because every now and then we keep seeing the videos. We keep seeing even those in the force, even those in the police force that should arrest are taking the drugs. So what is happening? What are the laws saying, first off? Do we have strong laws to actually help us police the situation?
Yes, Samuel, I think the laws, the current National Drug Control Act of 2008 is very, very clear when it comes to the issue of drugs. I mean, the law provides for 4 schedules, that is prohibited drugs, risk drugs, and then inhalants, and then high-risk drugs as well. For those prohibited drugs, for which KUSH falls into one, like Doc has already mentioned, one of the active ingredients there is the THC. I mean, if it goes through any laboratory test and it is proven that, yes, indeed it has THC, if it goes to court and that individual is found to be a trafficker, it is very, very clear. Section 7 of the National Drug Control Act calls for life imprisonment. It's very, very clear. It states that for those who manufacture, those who transport, those who cultivate, those who traffic, it is clear. It's life imprisonment. But again, it is left to the courts to determine who goes for life, who does not go. It's not with us, the law enforcement. It is left with the court to determine who goes for life imprisonment.
Have you prosecuted
There are
people?
cases.
Have you
I
prosecuted
have.
cases?
Remember the Honorable Minister said here, we should talk about data here.
Yes.
About facts, about figures. I will give you the most recent ones, Samuel,
Go
that
ahead.
we have. That is for just January to June 2022. For drug seizures from January to June 2022, Queen Elizabeth Key, for tramadol weighing 744.5 kg. Now, if you go to Bandama checkpoint, Bandama checkpoint again, Kenema and Lunge, unlawful possession of 3 compressed parcels of KUSH weighing 27.440 kg. The person, this individual was convicted and fined 10 million euros. So meaning the law is working. The law enforcement officers are doing their bit. But again, we shouldn't forget, I think we should make it clear here, this issue about KUSH all comes to people enriching themselves. That is the main thing here.
In what sense? In what sense?
Because they see it as, for every day somebody comes with KUSH and then you have customers, you have people who are patronizing with you. What do you think at the end of this, Samuel? They make money out of it.
Who are the
So
people who are making money out of this?
these are the traffickers.
Do we know them?
Like I said to you, this is an individual who was arrested at the Freetown International Airport, Lunge. He was charged to court, he was convicted, and he was asked to pay 10 million euros fine. There are a lot of statistics that I will give you.
Right.
As far as for cannabis, for tramadol, for KUSH, and all the rest of it for cocaine. For cocaine, we have, in 2019, there was a conviction of a Nigerian for 20 years imprisonment. He's at Pademba serving. As correctional service serving is sentenced there. So there are a lot of things that the law enforcement is doing as far as this issue of addressing drug trafficking is concerned. But again, here, we shouldn't forget, Samuel, that people who are in this business, they always try to beat the law enforcement.
How?
And we should also...
How is
take
that
note-
happening? How are people beating the laws? How are they actually bypassing and getting things done their own way? How is that
Don't
happening?
forget that people bring in drugs
Yeah.
through maybe the land borders that we have and they are porous, and through the water key that I've mentioned.
That
And
is manned?
And for the key, there have been a lot of arrests for the last 6 months or so. And all of them have been prosecuted. I'll give you an instance. 21 people were arrested for KUSH at the key.
Yes.
All of them were prosecuted and they were convicted.
And what was the punishment?
The punishment there, some of them were given 6 months with alternative fines as well. So like I said to you, it is left with the judiciary to determine. We, law enforcement, do not determine what punishment should be meted out to the individual. Yeah.
It's interesting. I'm actually trying to establish contact with the Director of Communications for Leone Judiciary to actually get, a comment on what does the judiciary make of the situation. Because if this is anything to go by, it means, because if the other day the appeals court judge, Justice Monfred Sisi, was saying, we should not leave the fights to the judiciary alone. The executive must come in. But if the institutions set up by the executive, now he's saying, wait a minute, we're doing our part. We're making arrests. We're taking people to court. But, the punishment from the courts is nothing compared to what these guys are making. So it means,
Thank
let's
God we have in
continue
our midst the Honorable
fight.
Minister. He will tell you that government is doing all within its power to support the judiciary. And as I speak to you now, maybe in the next few weeks from now, there will be a public destruction of drugs that are in the custody of the courts. This is how far the law enforcement or the Ministry of Internal Affairs has gone in approaching the Attorney General's office or the Director of Prosecution's office, and even the Master and Registrar. They were all involved in coming together and asking the court to give, the powers to the Minister of Internal Affairs with the law enforcement for the destruction of these drugs that are in the custody of both the court and the police as well. That is how far we have gone. And as I said to you, for a few weeks from now, this will be done publicly. The media will be invited for them to witness the destruction of these drugs that are in the custody.
Let me bring in the minister. This is very scary in the sense that attempts are being made to fight this menace, but not all the different institutions that should do the fight are not on the same page. If we are getting these culprits, taking them to court, and we're not actually getting what we need to get from the court to serve as a deterrent, to get people to just flee off the crime, it's worrisome. And I know off the camera, you and I have had conversations about how this is going and what is really happening to our young people. Of course, you've gone ahead to tell me about marshmallow, acetone, and all the different components of KUSH and how it's affecting young people. So with all of those efforts you are putting in to really get an understanding of the situation and how to tackle it, what is happening with this? What's your take on the fact that we're taking people to court and the judiciary, according to Mr. Cabo here, is not helping us? Yeah,
thank you very much again. Like I said initially, it needs collaborative efforts, collective efforts. We set our interministerial committee a couple of months ago, and I'll tell you the reason why I made mention of the Judiciary, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Ministry of Health, and the Ministry of Youth Affairs to sit and change the way we're doing things. The reason I remember initially I told you about our laws.
Right.
If you handle somebody with one bag KUSH and given an alternative form of punishment to say, you can go for 6 months or you pay 10 million, man, and you know the bag, the cost of it.
Right.
It's over 50, 100, 200, 500 million, and you find that individual just 10 million. It's sickening. I'm one of the whistleblowers, by the way.
Right.
Yeah? You go, they are facts. You arrest, they do their job, I do my job. That's what we said. These are societal issues. Yeah? And thank God he has given you data to say, we've convicted, we've done X, Y, Z. But even the laws in this country needs to be reviewed, certain laws.
Right.
The Criminal Procedure Act, I've always asked for this. And when we're making measure, my brother, Mr. Moya was telling me, look, young people are depressed, young people are no job, but let's go beyond that. Let's go 20 years ago. The war ended 20 years now. 20 years ago, October. 18 years, the war ended, and the TRC program ended 2 years after. Those minors that came to Freetown January 6, they were 13 years, 14-year-old. Today, at 20 years, they are 36, 32, 31. Where are the data? What did we do with those young guys? I'm looking after them, tracking their progress, how society accepts them. How many young people go back 20 years ago every year presidential pardon? Those young people, society found out them, and nobody's there to check the progress. What are they doing? How are they accepted in society? That's why I'm asking that. Let's do the need for our society. I mean, there are certain things that we just need to change. We can't continue doing the same thing and expect different results. That is to say, if we know, as it is now, just somebody bring in a bag of KUSH that has a tendency to kill 500, some from fact I'll tell you. Yeah? Whosoever, let me say this, anybody will take KUSH in the past 5 months, 6 months, and the bad thing is when you're into it, you come in, and they come back. That is to say, you become addicted to it. Trust me, for you to come back to zero to say no, that's the most difficult thing. Because if you're supposed to take it every 2 o'clock and you do not take it, you start feeling in a way that you think the entire world is going against you. You just have to go for it. There comes seeing the health aspect of it. Let's don't criminalize. I always tell people this. The uptakers, we should stop, reduce, prevent the new takers, the drug lords, the importers. You just told me it's life imprisonment. Let there be no alternative. Let the judiciary tell me that when you catch up with even a plastic, a kilo of kush, you go for life imprisonment. No second chance, no negotiation. When once the law proves it beyond all reasonable doubt that this is kush. And again, the difficult aspect of it is that the combination of kush, marshmallow is a legal leaf. It's legal in the UK. So if you bring marshmallow here, you bring acetone 100%. Sometimes I find it very difficult to explain this chemistry. You know why? I go to these places. I do not go there as a minister.
Right.
All man goes there, you know. We sit, I ask questions, we talk, you think we are the same. Until I leave, you realize that this is not it. Like I made mention initially, before coming to this studio, I went to Tigopol and Oloshoro. Samuel, it's beyond what you see. There are stakeholders in society that take kush.
Right.
Are you telling me it's because they don't have job? It has become so addicted that if you're supposed to take it 1 o'clock, the come down is on you. You don't take it one, you feel like the entire world is going against you.
Need for take and for come back.
For come back. And that's how you become addicted to it. So what happened? Young people need to take the challenge now. You are killing yourself. You have a chance. If you miss one dose, you miss a second dose, you have a chance of coming like 30%. It's just about you taking that radical step. Recalibrate and say, no, let me stop. Otherwise, I'm losing my life. These are the hard truth we should be saying. I understand the medical doctor is married because trying to bring the profession out. I understand. But I'll tell you the fact is, if you take KUSH, you take SPAC 5 now. 5 months, 6 months.
This one are the SPAC 5.
SPAC 5. Okay.
It's another brand we just
SPAC 5 is more dangerous. It's just a mess. You have a spray, you spray it in your Rizla, you smoke just a Rizla that you don't even know, no smell.
Wow.
To add to what the Honorable Minister said, Samuel, that one of my engagements just a few days back, we have two types here when we talk about KUSH here. Doc has already given you an idea of what it is all about.
Yeah,
from the scientific aspect.
yes.
That is the one that is imported. But now for the local brand or the local breed here, they're now going for these local leaves now. And just, was it Wednesday or so, if I'm not mistaken, a young man came to my office and
so we now locally produce KUSH.
Yes, he came with these leaves that we call perhaps, I beg to go, SO2, Console leaf. He came with it and said,
that the beans
leaves also we call Console leaf.
Yeah.
Came with it and said, this is one of the leaves we are now using. We add chemicals. What do they add now? They add tramadol to it. They add formalin to it. And even this thing that is being used when somebody wants to undergo operation, ketamine is added to it as well. So they have their own form of chemistry, like the Honorable Minister is saying here. All they are looking for is for you to have the best product. That is what they are looking for. And now we have what they call...
And in their sense, from your understanding, what do they consider to be the best product?
I mean, the one that the consumers are chasing, the one that they are running after. That is what they perhaps refer to. And they have what they develop what they call testers, guinea pigs, or in their own local way, they call it testers. Testers, these are not machines, these are individuals, human beings. When they produce whatever the KUSH or whatever.
Not talking this way, where they don't produce and then again, man, they wouldn't give una try this law, see if
exactly,
okay.
Samuel. That is it. Then they come, they are the testers. And then they can test them for no say, yes, this one is very, very, or for reduce and small, or your
Dr. Mansare, please just explain to us the things that constitute the different chemicals Ibrahim just mentioned, especially for the local production here.
Samuel, like I said earlier, it could be difficult to tell now exactly. Like say you take them to the labs, analyze them one after the other, you know the chemicals they contain. Yes, maybe just to add to that, whilst preparing for this program, I came across some interesting things. Actually, there are a lot of additives to this KUSH that is originally brought in, I was told that even grinded human skeleton is being used as well. Yeah. Grinded human skeleton. Now, maybe the minister was explaining something about this 1 o'clock. There is something I used to call the catch. There is a thin line between the desired effect, like Mr. Conteh was saying, the reasons as to why this guy is going for the drug. There's a thin line between the desired effect and addiction.
Okay.
Now, once you take the drug, you don't know what quantity you might need to get your desired effect. Yeah, and the brain is made in such a way that it has a fixed set point. That will say, when you, for instance, people who take alcohol, if you are used to taking alcohol, let's say 2 pints a day, and then when you take the alcohol 2 pints a day, there's tendency for the fixed set point of the brain to be shifted a bit, goes a bit higher.
For an increase.
Yes. So if you do not take the 2 pints of alcohol in a particular day, you become restless. And that's what happens exactly with these KUSH victims. Once you start taking it, of course, I mentioned earlier what happens exactly. They become drowsy, some see them, they are helpless, some will have tremors, some will have seizures, some will even have coma. And there are cases of sudden death because there is possibility for depression of the respiratory center once you take it. Remember I said the brain is like the control power or the power room for the house, for the body, sorry. So there is a center in the brain that controls respiration. Yeah, so once that one is depressed, there is tendency for sudden death. So once they take this, there is what we call withdrawal effect. Yeah, when you take a drug, the effect of this drug is the opposite of the withdrawal. Yeah, for this case now, you see them you feel like they feel sleepy, they become drowsy, and once the content or the content of the drug begins to wear out in the system, the opposite begins to happen. That's when they become agitated, they are violent, that's the time they become antisocial, and they even have suicidal attempt. So this is really a public health concern. Thank God authorities concerned are here. Well, I'm sure the Ministry of Health will also be strongly involved in the fight against this one. Because honestly, as I'm speaking now, the Kisi Psychiatric Home is overwhelmed.
Exactly, there are no beds at the moment.
Overwhelmed, yeah.
There are no beds.
So let me just add this, say this one. There was something the Honorable Minister mentioned about parents. Quite recently, if I'm correct, not exactly a month ago, there was this school, I will not name the school now, and the teachers just decided to do a random check of the boys coming to school before the assembly, and they found in the socks of one of this young man KUSH, and they brought him to our office there, and during our investigations or counseling sessions, and we got to know that the papa, they smoke KUSH.
I didn't pick him taker.
Another school we went to.
Now go back to my point. So center issue.
Like the Honorable Minister is saying, one of the schools we went to, I will not also name the school. This one, a girl picking now. After our engagement with them, walked up to us, she was in tears. We thought maybe it was not anything related to what we have discussed. And she said, "Una need to help me." How? Say, my brother don't left school. Why? Because of drugs, KUSH. The daddy started off with cannabis, and the boy now exceeded the father from cannabis to KUSH. So these are the problems we are faced with. The parents, bad example of parents in front of their kids, they smoke in front of their kids. They send their kids.
Yeah.
When you see a young man in any of these schools, an ordinary tea water, working with it, like concussion did it.
Not water.
Most,
A mixture.
Good number of them.
And you don't, I mean, sometimes I always say this. My worries, yes, I'm worried about these young folks that you're showing. Those rich kids, you think they are coming from rich home, well-to-do home, and they've been into this. Samuel, go to universities. So we need a society, like let's just recalibrate. Let's stop the blame games. Let's take responsibility.
Right.
Then try to say now one person they want picking at the community
the men, yeah.
But of late, these people don't even talk to their kids. They don't care about how you come to school, how you go to school, how do they visit your teachers. I mean, you ask your teachers, how me picking behave, how this, because the current youth board, young people are so curious for explore.
Exactly.
There are certain things where you add up to this. If I cut in and if you take 3 hours, again you. They are all different things. So society get to accept them and say no, let me change for protect this generation. Yeah. Otherwise, this is like the generation of curiosity. In as much as we talk about the generation of innovation and creation, and they create in diverse ways.
Yeah.
So let's accept and deal with the current issue as a societal issue, as a national issue. Let's put all hands on deck and get the necessary impact and make the necessary change for our generation.
Yes, Moses.
Yes, I think this is very serious. In as much as we're calling on parents, government has a role to play in this. Government, the Ministry of Youth, of course, the policy has to guide policy to tackle these things, to address these problems. We have a lot of mad young people. Today, when you look at the streets, you see a lot of mad young people passing all over the place. This is a concern. And all of this, as the doctor rightly pointed out, I think the facts are overwhelming. Dr. Naheem has said a lot about this. A lot. And I am looking forward to seeing the Chief Medical Officer's report, because by Section 13 of the Medical Examiners Act 2021, it gives the Chief Medical Officer the right to report on causes of death. Maybe by December we would have that. So we would also properly understand the gravity of drug addiction and drug abuse or substance abuse. Now, as we speak, the Pharmacy and Drugs Act of 2001 also throws a lot of weight, to fighting substance abuse and drug abuse. Now, when you look at the pharmacists, they deal with drugs. That is their own specialty. And that is where I say, at this time, when we're dealing with this crisis, the pharmacists are also very crucial in this, because they understand these components well. Section 48, let me read verbatim from the Pharmacy and Drugs Act of 2001.
Right.
It says, no person shall have in his possession, without lawful excuse, proof of which shall be on him, any opium or Indian hemp of any species, that is the SPAC 5, the KUSH, or description whatsoever, or any residue thereof. Now, subsection 2, that's section 48 of subsection 1, section 48, subsection 1, subsection 2 of section 48 says, the minister, that is the Minister of Health, may under section 62 make regulations applying the provisions of subsection 1 to such narcotics as may be specified in the regulations. Now, section 49 is where it's clearly, where this law clearly bans smoking of cannabis sativa. Now, section 49A says, no person shall A, smoke opium or Indian hemp, or frequent any place used for the smoking of such drugs, or permit premises owned or occupied by him to be used, or any person smoking opium or Indian hemp. Now, even if you allow people to come in your house
and smoke,
with an unfinished house, that is a crime in itself, according to the law. So the law is clear, and that's why I'm also looking at this time when we're celebrating African Youth Month, with these things emerging, the Minister of Youth must urgently engage the Minister of Health. We should see strides. We should have a national conversation on this. We should see how we engage ghettos. I would like to recommend to the minister that at this time, it's an emergency. We don't just have to sit here and say, okay, this is going on. Let us call the ghettos. Let us call them. Let us have a conversation. Let us have engagement. On this one, Again,
well, you
I am
you
seeing,
talk
I am
about
seeing,
the ghettos. Just
yeah,
quickly,
yes,
you
yes.
talk about the ghettos.
Yeah, I just want to, I just want to close in on this.
Go ahead. Let me
We're seeing a lot of checkpoints. Okay, every night when you go in, you see. Sometimes I say the checkpoints are too many. Needless to me, I see. You know, if we could use these bodies to crack down on ghettos, this is an emergency. Use the resources of the state to ensure we protect the young people. That is how the state shows its seriousness on fighting this epidemic. Now it has an epidemic proportion. Okay, we must not make light of the KUSH. It is graduating to epidemic proportion. And as a nation, just like Corona, we should be fearful. And so, if we're seeing a lot of checkpoints, let us commend these bodies to cracking down on ghettos, to cracking down on people, searching people. Let us have equipment in town to checking people. Now, I would also want to see a situation wherein when people, institutions are being checked. Now, there are effects to even the economy. When you have a lot of people taking it, who are working, who are people who hold very important briefs, they don't think right. They go sign wrong things. They work in ministries, like we rightly mentioned. Now we have agreed to the fact that it's not just those who don't have jobs. Now, that becomes more fearful. Imagine for a second, a policeman who is supposed to enforce law and has gun, a soldier who holds gun, who is there to protect lives and property, and we have established how this drug
and there's also the possibility of having medical doctors, lawyers, journalists, taking KUSH.
I jokingly, my brother said that. Well, now he said the game has caught the army officers, the policemen, the market women. It's like the game would probably catch maybe medical doctors or even lawyers. But then I will not get onto that. But then this is serious,
right?
Because if we get to see people who are holding gun, we're getting to elections. We need to check these things. This is why I say this is a national security threat. It's not something we should just play around. I expect that government must come out with a very strong statement at this time to ensure that. Now, it was impressive that the military took that action. Impressive. But we need a very strong statement from government to criticize it, to put things in place, because we are not safe. People become trigger happy. We ask the question why. But they not to see they're supposed to even shoot people.
Someone just in fact shared a video with me
of
a military personnel holding a gun and of course suffering from KUSH.
You can imagine
with people.
Samuel, like I agree some of these things my brother is saying. You made mention of the effort that we are making as a government. I'll tell you, I'll bet you no government has ever engaged young people than the current government. Every chiefdom, we just finished the Tonkolele Declaration, that reached out to every chiefdom, every community, from the private our development partners. Let's watch the youth at Rick's project again. On that, you have UNFPA, you have UNDP, you have FAO championing it. It will surprise you to know that even when I went to Kigali a couple of weeks ago, I went there with two young guys that been into drugs that decided to change, to have these ambassadors. We went to Kenema, we met this young man that has been like a notorious, I don't know name what he has been doing. He decided to make a U-turn. And the UNDP country rep said, yes, he should be an ambassador. And when I was given the opportunity to take young people to mingle with other stakeholders across Africa, I took that young man from Kenema, I took the other young man from Makeni to say, can go see how. And today I'll tell you, perhaps because of the measures that we put in, that we've done for the past couple of years, but like I said, look, go back to the policy, it's there. How do we salvage this current challenge? And I believe there is more awareness now than ever before.
So the point now is, there is awareness, and the danger is, the problem is not just with those who are not educated, not just those who are out in the streets, who on a normal day will say, hey, but they not get better sense, they're quick for be exploited. But you go to the universities, go to the colleges, when they have parties, when they do their initiations, then you begin to wonder what is actually Sierra Leone turning into. What does the future hold for this country with those we consider to be enlightened citizens, putting our society at risk with their behaviors, becoming pressed to all of these things? Then what are we doing?
That's what we're saying. It's a continuous engagement. Let's continue to tell young people to know the do's and don'ts. Let's continue, like my doctor there is saying, explaining to them that, look, when you take this, your central part will be off within a stipulated period of time. Remember during the diaper thing? I saw a media house in this country explaining the process. And I called them, come on, now you're legalizing illegality, you're training these young people. Can you shut down that video on YouTube? Shut down this on YouTube. So it's about how do we explain, how do we continue to engage? There are certain countries, you don't do this. From here, those drug laws will be there waiting for us. To have a cabinet minister sitting in a platform like this to explain, to say, no, this is bad. Let's commend the government for this. To have a police bringing report to tell you XYZ has been convicted, let's commend the government for this. To tell you that we've been engaging every chiefdom, every district, to tell them the danger about drugs. Let's commend the government for it. Let's take responsibility as a society. Our parents, our civil society, our media houses, our judiciary. Let's just change.
Forgive me, let me hold you. As you mentioned the judiciary, I have online the Director of Communications for the Judiciary of Sierra Leone, Elkas Sano. Elkas, good evening and welcome to AYV on Sunday.
Good evening from Shebuma, Kailan District, and thanks AYV for connecting me.
Thank you for accepting to speak to us on this issue. First off, the judiciary is said to have a very pivotal role to play in ensuring that we eradicate this menace in society. People have been caught, people have been prosecuted, taken to the court, and the court would always go for the least punishment available. We either convict you for 6 years imprisonment, or you pay a fine of about 10 million Leone. And if I'm a businessman, I know I'm running a business that I can get 100 or 500 million. Fining me 10 million, I would continue to do that business because I know the money is always available for me to pay back. And of course, I'll make 10 fools. So what role does the judiciary at this point would play to ensure that we eradicate this menace, we fight this menace?
Thank you very much. That is also a misconception. What people should understand is the very fact that when you talk about the function of the judiciary, the foremost function is justice delivery. And if we are talking about justice delivery, we do it within the ambit of the law. We are not there, we are not created by law to legislate law. Laws are being legislated by parliament. And for us as an institution, we are there to interpret and give meaning to those laws. In that light, if for instance, the Pharmacy and Drugs Act 2011 says if you are caught or in possession of illegal substance or prohibited drugs, if the law says you should be fined 2,000 leones or a sentence of 1 month, if you go against that, that means you have acted in contradistinction with the very law that established or that guides you to prescribe punishment. That is just simple meaning. I haven't stated that. Now, we have a very critical and significant role as an institution. Those who are following the activities or operations of the judiciary, especially our court. Even last week, the principal magistrate of Pademba Road sentenced two convicted people for who were in possession of prohibited drugs. They were charged. The police charged them, or they were charged under the Pharmacy and Drugs Act. So, what we as an institution will do is to ensure when those accused persons are brought to court, mark you, we don't seek pleasure as an institution to just sentence people. That is not what we were created for. We are also mindful of the very fact that accused persons have rights, and their rights should be protected under Section 23 of the Sierra Leone Constitution. So therefore, we also want to give confidence in not only the accused persons, but also the state or those who are bringing cases before us. In regard to the KUSH, what we are doing as an institution, we want to see a sanitized environment. We want to see a healthy environment. So therefore, spirit trial is one of the things we are embarking on. When police charge to court, we will ensure those matters are speedily tried, and we conclude it within the expected time frame.
Elkas, let me ask this question. So fundamentally, we are aware that the functions of the judiciary is literally to interpret and punish lawbreakers, to interpret the laws and punish lawbreakers. But looking at what you've just mentioned, the sanitization of Sierra Leone's environment at this point needs every hand on deck. How then do we ensure, Ibrahim here from the National Drug Law Enforcement Agency mentioned, there's a provision for maximum punishment, which is lifetime imprisonment, but we're not going for the maximum punishment. We're always going for the least punishment when we're dealing with these issues. So what is informing those decisions if we actually want to put a stop to this menace in society?
Okay, we have the magistrate court, which is court of first instance. When the police charge, we look at what is before us. We are not court of social media. We are not the court of public opinion. The judiciary is a court of law and court of fact. Therefore, if a police officer has charged an accused person, Mr. A, of in possession of prohibited drugs, let's say that punishment says, or that particular provision says, you are to fine 2,000 leones and sentence 1 month. That is just what we'll go by. Having stated that, there are certain provisions that says you allow it to go through PI, that is preliminary investigation. Then it comes, the magistrate commits it. The magistrate will only commit that particular case if there is sufficient evidence or an overwhelming evidence to do so. Without which, the evidence, if there is any iota of doubt, the magistrate will be left with no option but to either discharge or acquit and discharge. But if there is overwhelming evidence and it falls within the jurisdiction of the magistrate will look at the threshold of the evidence, and at the end of the day, if the magistrate thinks in his wisdom there is evidence enough to convict that person, so be it. The magistrate will be left with no option but to convict in line with the prescribed law. That notwithstanding, if it's for PI, preliminary investigations, the magistrate, based on the overwhelming evidence, will commit it. So these are some of the things our should try to understand.
We understand that, and I would also want us to save the legal platitudes for another day. But just quickly, what's the level of commitment of the Judiciary of Sierra Leone in helping to curb this menace at this point?
I have just stated in our introductory premise that we are committed to an extent. Like last week, two convicted persons were sentenced by the principal magistrate. That is just to tell you or send a far-reaching message about our commitment to ensuring that we have a tranquil environment, to ensure that we have a healthy environment so that society can move forward.
Thank you very much, Elkas, for accepting to speak to us this evening, all the way from Shibwema. Thank you very much. All right, we're still discussing the menace of KUSH in Sierra Leone at the moment. Continue to share with us your views and ask your questions on the AYV News Facebook page. Already we've gotten many of them. Shortly we shall be running through some of them in the show. But just quickly, let's go out in the street and talk to a few Sierra Leoneans. What do they make of the upsurge of KUSH across Sierra Leone? Let's quickly go on and we'll be right back.
State personnel, we hear it on social media. Yes, we watch media, you see police, soldier, they're all involved in KUSH now. And we the youths there, it make we become so lazy. So like I believe saying I want thing that the way they poor with society for now.
This KUSH don't they bring problem to we the youths here, young man them, sports people there, other people there. We no go find, we go send bad message to picking and back all the born for country man. All about this life. I rest the land way for it, but who pass any other thing with them and we know. But what they say, we say the trainers, players, they know me are there against that bad. The mistake at the pull you in my camp, I punish you, I defend punishment for you. Because really, the education for be the youth man, their ambition and their aim. Education, na broad term, not to pass for a college no more. You can be a professional footballer and education you get to. You give powerful fitter, powerful medicine and education you get to. With that, it will make you left for take that bad thing, you know, they help for damage the country, destroy peace, not get.
And then country to youth man brother, they mean you want them ready to come. So, but like all media for say like you're not good at all because like that's the most you're not good and we try for like at least slap up our government and let man and let them just stop and cause like me and let me say my society and around my own side because they may not say KUSH not good and, like, but like I hear man and say they make them this, they make them that, but like all I know you just still live by yourself, you do something positive. So like all I can say like let man them stop because like even if you get something what you do, you know say in a country, you know, easy country, tough. So like you can get you one, you get so there's a lot of places like you able to make you one turn to two. So like you engage yourself in something positive. Like all I can say, let we just try to stop this KUSH stuff and the advice all we call like negative stuff. So you know, all I can say like let we just try and stop them.
KUSH na losses, then KUSH na damage, KUSH na theory poor. Because some of we company girl the way they take KUSH, you go see the body fine, it fresh, it fine for look, you get fine woman body. But when you put hand on KUSH, between 4, 3, 5 months, you go see the okuru. That na losses for them, not to benefit for you, the woman where they take hand. No matter how your body big, as you begin to take KUSH as a woman, you dey drop, you dey go down, you dey do some kind way where you need get boundary for no man where they use you now. So long as you want to take KUSH, any man when near you, the tendency there for they go use you. So tell for small money, for anything, where we done there, that na rough life you live. And when they live that rough life, you change condition, you lost your value as woman.
In the first place, KUSH not a give me in me own side. KUSH not a get any inspiration. The only time are you as an artist we can get inspiration now we can sit down at a quiet time, yeah, or listening to something very inspirational. But like not to the intake of KUSH they give person inspiration, right? If you not an artist or another underground artist the best way you can get inspiration for make you do your stuff them, you can wait at quiet time, you sit down, think, yeah, that will give you a vivid inspiration. Forget what you need, the kind of lyrics then, the vibes then we need to put together for make a song. But like not to go and take KUSH the great inspiration. So that's not just a negative perspective within them. Yeah.
We always see the negative part of KUSH because we see the side effects where they get to be young brothers and sisters that are there. Then they sleep in the street, left bed for Boleron. Then they walk on the street, left the main line, go inside gutter. So that alone, now the side effect that we see. And that is how we say KUSH not good. The government now they rule. And majority of them, they see what's in the gun. Now the country and for majority suspect the terrorist the KUSH of itself. So me what I can say to the government because I'm not people advance. I just try for talk to them, try for put stop to this particular thing because as they say the youth are the future leaders of tomorrow. If they don't carry them here now they destroy the youth, I believe say in the future we not get no future leaders because for now KUSH don't destroy all the future leaders then for now. So let them just try for put a hold to this particular thing. Let them call KUSH. And that's me there for sale.
Those were some Sierra Leoneans from the streets making their own contributions as to how we should deal with the menace of KUSH. And they've suggested, let me just run through a few messages, but also we shall shortly be joining Tyson Conteh, who did the BBC Africa High documentary on the use of KUSH across Sierra Leone. When we establish contact with Tyson, we shall have his story, what actually pushed him and what was his experience doing the documentary for the BBC Africa Eye. So many messages in already, but I think we've established contact with Tyson Conteh, the guy who did the documentary for the BBC Africa Eye on KUSH. Tyson, good evening and welcome to AYV on Sunday. Okay, I think we've lost him there. When we establish link again, we'll definitely bring him in. This KUSH business, not to talk, you need action and consequences for those concerned. Osam Conteh is saying that. Ahmed Kamara is saying, media houses, have you guys followed up with the said container that was allegedly there with drugs? You guys should also try to hold government accountable by giving us unbiased news or feedback. Interesting. Amanatu Sanusi saying, Ministry of Health needs to also do something about this situation. It is known that this KUSH is used on donkeys and horses for them to have power years back. That it damages the body parts, liver, gut, brain, and kills them. Okay. Lloyd Banks is saying if government wants to stop drug trafficking and drugs abuse in Sierra Leone, they should implement stiff laws in every border crossing area, including the airport, because since I was born, I had never seen a bag of drugs flying up from the sky. It is the authority who work at the border crossing areas that are responsible for the arrival of every drug in the country. And I believe that when we start attacking the borders, we will know how to attack the problems in the country. Yoki Musa is saying, I think the government needs now to legalize marijuana because it does not create an impact on the young people like how the KUSH affects the young people in the country. Interesting. Is there any law or laws that prohibits the use of this kind of dangerous drug? I'm sure that question has been answered already. What, if yes, how effective has this law been enforced? What is the next step to tackle this dangerous drug in Sierra Leone? What has been the role of the Minister of Youth Affairs in Sierra Leone towards the drug? Has the minister been sending sensitization messages to the youth? If yes, how has he been doing that? This KUSH is really destroying the young generation of Sierra Leone. Government must act to eliminate this drug out of the country. Positive messages must be sent to young people to avoid taking KUSH. Government should take immediate action and call this an emergency issue. This is not good for our country. It is a situation that is damaging the future leaders of the nation. Sanusi is saying, Daniel Kamara, I will not go through that message. There is also an advantage of smoking KUSH over marijuana. KUSH has drastically reduced abusive languages and fighting from the perpetrators compared to smoking marijuana. Interesting. Abdul Kabo is saying, if you are young and unemployed and frustrated, the probability of you doing drugs is highly likely. You promise them, okay, we're not talking politics here, please. Let's just address the issue. Our authorities are responsible for drug trafficking in the country. They are talking more than how they work. Since the boys started smoking drugs in this country, I have never seen a magistrate sentencing someone to 5 years imprisonment for drug trafficking, but they can sentence someone who steals a bag of beans to 5 years imprisonment. What kind of crime are we fighting in Sierra Leone? No youth will take KUSH if it is not in the market. So stop the importation of KUSH, then the problem would stop. The KUSH is in every corner of Sierra Leone. Somebody is saying. Ali Samura is saying, please, Samuel, Minister of Youth Affairs, needs to pay attention to the car wash. Those places have been turned into drug cartels, especially the car wash closer to the National Stadium. Okay? Al-Haji Majuba is saying, Samuel, first off, all we ask help from the Most High. But truly, the issue of drugs and the misuse of this is quite confusing for me to understand, please. The new direction promises to transform our young people, youth lives to education, but they've destroyed okay, Mr. Minister, I guess you should tour the entire country and do massive sensitization. Our colleagues are dying slowly. So Ikatu is saying, we've seen top government officials protecting suspected containers with drugs. What does this tell you? Abigail Yawa Stevens is saying the KUSH is like the Buga challenge. It is killing our young people and their future. They are even mixing it with formalin. It's really alarming. Some of our politicians are the pushers of these harmful drugs, and they themselves and some of the security personnel are taking it. It's very alarming, and actions need to be taken before we country full up with Chris Mandem. KUSH the Chris we young man and woman them. Quick one. I'm going to take at most 5 more messages. Unfortunately, we have so many of them, but time would never permit me to go through all of them. Mr. Kaduazaki saying, the excessive intake of harmful drugs by young people in Sierra Leone is worrisome. Many young people have destroyed their internal fabrics, all in the name of drugs consumption. That is why the rate of madness is alarming. More should be done on community outreach programs. Samuel, I would challenge the man in the studio that the Nigerian citizen who was sentenced is no longer in Pademba Road. The man is in Nigeria. And if you don't believe me, Samuel, let him give you the full information of the Nigerian, and you contact the director of prison to produce the prisoner if you will find him there. Let me tell you, some of these men who come defend the law, they are the same people who break the law, trust me. The abuse of drugs in the country is very rampant, especially tramadol and KUSH. Young people are consuming it every day, all in the name to feel fine and for sexual purposes. The law enforcement agencies should do the needful by securing the crossing points in the country. Dr. John Idris Lahai posted last night that he has confirmed a source from within the ranks of Lungi Airport that airplanes, flights do come in the late nights, and their men in uniform who guard those things. Abigail Stevens said this current state of affairs is very alarming. Are the politicians sincere about themselves? The KUSH is giving them cash. That is killing our innocent and vulnerable people. Let me just take a message from Dr. Freddie Lawson from UK. We have so many messages. Time would never, like I said, permit me to go through all of them. Robert would find time to discuss that. The approach to dealing with the drug issue as described will not address the problem. It's very lightweight and doesn't seem to have any effect. Making wild comparisons to what is happening in other countries are unhelpful. The situation in Sierra Leone might be similar but not identical. The authorities must have a radical approach to solving this problem before it escalates rapidly out of control. The effects of self-harm is what they are concentrating on. This can all change dramatically when these affected people start using their condition to inflict untold violence on the population. This is not a joke. A zero-tolerance approach must be instituted ASAP for both dealers and users all over. If that's not done, there could be trouble ahead. That from Dr. Freddie Lawson in the UK. He's a lawyer. We have hundreds of messages. Unfortunately, I cannot go through all of them. But at this point, what should we focus on in trying to understand the gravity of what we're dealing with, and how do we, from a medical perspective, address the concerns? Because even with the experts in the field of psychiatry, we do not have enough. We have Dr. Jallo and his deputy there, but when you go to the facility is almost full. We do not have beds, and from what they've told us, about 90% of the male patients admitted there are there because of KUSH. So how should we, what should be the immediate steps in terms of understanding the science? How do we address the science and, save our young population, Doc?
Yes, so I think possibly we need to invest in laboratories and see how best we can analyze the substances in these KUSH components that are moving around. The other thing, something I almost forgot to mention, is that something we most of us do not know, or a lot of people do not know. But let me just say this now, probably if youths where they take KUSH go here, go understand me well.
Go ahead.
Now, the KUSH will take, or the KUSH will take, and not just the damage, also your brain, your central nervous system, no more the effect. Now, when you take the KUSH, whether by smoking it or by inhaling it, it go in your lungs. And when it go in your lungs, it go destroy the protective mechanism them where God don't put inside you. And as a result, it exposes you to a lot of recurrent chest infections. Yeah, we see them almost every day. Most of them can not. At times, after we cannot treat the medical aspect, one we think say they actually disturb them, then we send a psychiatric home, probably for counseling and psychotherapy. So it disturb your lungs, because when you take like I say, they destroy the protective mechanism so in your lungs, but they help you for clear out some infections and where they come. Also, there is possibility for exposure to risk for cancer. I will not be even. I'll not go be surprised if less than no time from now we begin to get youths coming in with increased incidence of cancer, be it lung cancer now, cancer in the GI system. Because when we take some of these things and get something we call carcinogens, they are prone to causing cancer. And one thing I want to make you know, if you are watching me now, there's what we call in medicine genetic cloning. This is not the possibility for you get a trait inside your family. We know they show up until you subject yourself to certain stimulus. For instance, some man they get madness in family, but the madness not will show up until you subject yourself to certain drugs them like this KUSH, the tramadol, and the marijuana where they are around. So that somebody take up and not affect them one day. Normally say yourself you can't take her, you go scot-free. However, also we get no two individuals are exactly the same. No two, even identical twins, they are not exactly the same. They might be similar but not exactly the same. So some people may take the KUSH and they may go for some time with no effect. Whereas others, once where you take it is that now they get effect one. So please, if you listen to me now, don't be carried away. No follow peer pressure. Thank you.
Ibrahim, we know we have the other day I was looking at the sexual offences law, looking at the customary law, looking at the child rights, and then we know there were laws contradicting each other, and we pushed for harmonizing those laws. So at this point, what do you consider the most challenging areas in the fight to clamp down on this particular menace?
Well, I think, Samuel, there are two laws when we talk about drug offenses or drug-related offenses. We have the Pharmacy and Drugs Act of 2001, and then we have the National Drug Control Act of 2008. But by law, if there is any conflict between the two, there's any issue that has to do, looking at the two laws, the law makes it very clear for the current law, that is the 2008, has to take precedence over the order. Meaning, for instance, if somebody is charged to court, and looking at the evidence, I listened with rapt attention when Edgar Sano was making his case. For instance, this individual, this Nigerian that I referred to,
yes,
was charged with trafficking. And it's very, very clear under Section 7 of the National Drugs Act, if that individual traffics drugs into this country, it should go in for life imprisonment. Not any form of any other sentence or whatever. It is very, very clear. But again, like we say, there are two laws.
Right.
It all depends on what is presented. But it's very clear again that if there is conflict in any of these two laws, the 2008 Act will take precedence over the other. But again, there is room, I believe there is room for us to harmonize.
Do we at this point need to actually repeal? Do we need to review the laws? Because if it's since 2008, for example, we have things, I mean, these guys are very innovative, very creative in doing things. How then do we update our laws to fit modern times?
Yeah, we've had engagement with the West Africa Drug Policy Network and even ECOWAS Commission, the drug unit to be specific.
Right.
And we've developed a 5-year strategic plan, and part of it should deal with the review of the current act, that is 2008, and we are looking forward to them to come in handy and see how best we can review the laws. Even His Excellency the President, he made reference to it in one of his address to Parliament in 2018 or thereabouts. So we are looking forward to ECOWAS and West Africa Drug Policy to come on board and help us.
So besides the laws, the agency is comfortably situated to fight this menace?
Well, it's challenging for all of us because we have been reaching out to young people, more so those in school, to see how best we can help them. And again, it begs for us to know that even these young people, some of them are still having these things around them. So again, it becomes challenging for all of us. But notwithstanding, we are still reaching out to them, and we believe that they will listen and then they'll take a decision for them to stay away from it.
This is a societal problem, Moses. You go, I mean, if the stories we've had, I mean, you go to the home, it's like we they go in a different community, they see one par, they send in small picking for go buy cigarettes. Then already they introduce them. So you come on out also a family side. The papa they smoke marijuana, then the pikin feels they need for graduates, then take do I pass marijuana, let go with KUSH and all of that. But it comes back from the home. From the home it goes to the school. In the school there is also a teacher who teaches, but not only the academic work, but a teacher is also smoking KUSH. And it comes to, so it appears it's a vicious cycle we're going to struggle with for the longest of time. So how do we address, how do we tackle these things? Because it's a societal problem.
Sure. Rightly put, it's a brilliant way you've just put it. I must admit, I believe when homes fail, the nation faces a colossal collapse. values are ingrained in homes.
Right.
Values of honesty, values of living right. The first point of socialization is the home. We all agree that's where people get to know. You have to have courtesy, you have to show respect to people and things like that. So the home is crucial. So as we speak today, parents should also have a responsibility to look, to monitor their kids, to monitor their youths. It's not because somebody has passed 18 years that will make that person above monitoring or discipline or what have you. So parents must continue to do that. What we've seen is we've seen a neglect of parental duty for both male and female children, and this has affected our society. You see now girls are getting into it when they get into their certain businesses for their homes or what have you. So parents are not, again, the homes are not setting pretty examples. And which of you now, from the state, from the home and what have you, the state is what controls everything. That is why the state has a stake in this, because the state can make regulations that can force even people who live in their homes to be responsible. In some states, they have a whole ministry for homes. For example, if you're not taking care of your kids well, the environment in which they live is not safe. They come to you, they take your kids from you because you're not being responsible. Sometimes they even take you to court for that. So we need to ensure that at every step of our path to progress, we set these things right. We have to intensify civic education, I must say, as a way to address this. Education, we have to go back to these primary schools. We have to ensure that the curriculum. I am happy that Mr. Tutange is now leading the civic education curriculum, which I believe should start very soon. So we should be big on educating the young people on the dangers of these things, like I mentioned. So it's a way we will be able to tackle these things from the embryonic stage. Laws, we have to be brutal. We have to be very brutal with these guys. We have to be radical. The ceremony we want, we don't have to just pump up these wrongs and play politics around it. And this is why when I come here, I'm passionate about it, because it's not just about me. It's not just because I am here and maybe I'm fortunate, maybe we have Obanje spirit, we were able to withstand the tramplings, we did not die, we did not give in to pressure, we did not give in to whatever society threw at us. But if we do not act, you and I will not be safe, the country will not be safe. Because as we see things keep going, we don't do the necessary engagement. I'm all entreating the minister too. The ceremony we believe engagement is crucial. We have to engage. And this is why in the African Youth Month, I believe by this time, with all what is happening, we should have a plan for engagement. And it's crucial in the African Youth Month. Let us take steps. I don't just want to come here and speak blow grammar, speak Boku English, and we go back and our OCT no change. We want to foresee radical actions. The man them way they make this thing happen. Like the Dr. Frederick Lawson rightly said, we have to stop the importation. We have to find the people who import these things. We have to be strong on that. If they are friends, they are our colleague politicians, we're in the same party, we must tell them the truth. That what they are doing is inimical to the progress of the nation. When you destroy the nation's youth, there's nothing left. There's nothing left. No, but you will not have quality accountant. The minister here is an accountant. So you will not have, imagine a doctor takes KUSH. He goes to a theater to perform a surgery. Will you be safe? Now, even if it's not you, or your father, your mother, or anybody close to you is in the hospital. This is a national emergency, and we must act radically. We must ensure we do the necessary education and engagement. I must say we must be big on engagement. Like they always say, Sierra Leone, when something come up, few 2 days, 3 days, money, After that, man, don't forget.
The fire brigade approach.
Till the man and go back, continue for do the thing they do. And with the manner in which things are panning, if we do not take radical action, if we do not see people being brought to the, because there are many rumors as to people who are bringing in this, bringing in that. So it's now left to the police and other people to ensure that they track them down.
Let me hold you there quickly. I have Tyson Conteh on the line. Tyson, good evening and welcome to YV on Sunday.
Yes, good evening, Samuel, and good evening to the panelists.
Tyson, take us through the experience, the feeling you got when you investigated the issue of KUSH. I think it was in 2021. And what did that bring out at the end of the documentary for the BBC Africa High?
Samuel, the feeling I got when I was doing that film, and even after that, I think I am seeing all that I was thinking and I was feeling now. I would like to say I saw this coming. I saw it taking over the youth in this country. And if you see, even the title of my film will let you know that, yes, I saw this coming. KUSH into the mad world. I saw KUSH taking the people in this country into the mad world, and it was not only for those that are smoking the KUSH, but it is for everyone, because it's madness. If you see what is happening now, it's madness, you know. But unfortunately, I believe Sierra Leoneans did not utilize that film as much as they would love to, because I can tell you that I have many countries around the world, both in Africa and some countries in America, like Trinidad and Tobago, using that film to educate the people in their country, to make sure policymakers get their attention on drugs and on KUSH. And I've been invited online interviews many times in out of Africa, or maybe places like Nigeria, Ghana, people and television stations calling me for interview to discuss about that film and what was my experience. But this was not happening in Sierra Leone, and people will not use it.
Tyson, just before we get into I mean, what would have been the impact in your own country? Let's first off try to establish, when you met those young people who were or are into the drugs, what did they tell you? What pushed them? What got them into taking drugs?
So I would say all the people that I talk to, and I believe it, is that they don't all of a sudden jump into KUSH. These are people that have been on drugs. Some have been on marijuana, and if you see the way drugs business is going on in this country, it's kind of like they look out for the new high every time. You know, that's why we are having drugs coming in and passing out. If you see, we have tramadol, it came in and it causes its own problem, and then it's passed out. Pampers and now KUSH. It is because they have been on drugs, and so they are always looking for the new high. Once this new high, this high is not effective or potent anymore in their system, they start looking for another high. You know, so this is how all the KUSH people have been. I can tell you that it is rare to find any single KUSH user who will tell you that I never took any other drug. I started using drugs on KUSH. That's not the case, you know. So you have to go back to when they start using drugs and what brought them to drugs. And a lot of them will tell you that they start using drugs because they will tell you, I don't have hope, I don't have a job, I need to do something, and the only way I can feel better is when I am high, so I need to be high all the time. That is why they gave it the nickname. Some call it Mr. More, because the more they take it, the more they feel the high, and they forget about the troubles, they forget about their struggles, and you know. But I saw that KUSH is different from the other drugs they have been using, and they didn't realize it, and now it's taking them into the dark place, which is affecting everyone, and it's a threat to the society. Everyone can attest to that.
At this point, do you feel disappointed in the sense that when you raised the issue, especially after you had done that thorough investigation and put out the issue, it was not taken seriously or considered seriously by the state? I mean, every player?
Yes, I feel very disappointed. I told my editor at BBC that because I was kind of like communicating to him around what is happening in my country, and I told him over and over again that I feel so disappointed. I feel that my efforts and the effort of all the people that work on that film, the risks we took to to go out in the night and film in those cartels was all in vain, because I did that to make sure I blow that whistle, and that policymakers, the government, all people that are involved can step up and try to put an end, or at least mitigate the spread of KUSH. But at the end of the day, it is getting worse, even beyond my imagination. And so it's a disappointment, because it was risky going out in the night to cartels, to meet people, film them making the KUSH in their own way, in their own industry. And I can tell you that is why KUSH is fastly spreading. They have their local industry. They manufacture it now. You can close the borders. You can close the Wataki, the airport. These guys have their own industry now, and they manufacture KUSH in their own way and sell it to people. And that is what is really causing the problem, because they don't have the proper mechanism to manufacture drugs. So they can just use whatever they think that when they mix it, this can bring high to their colleagues. That is what they mix. They have their own way they do it, and they sell it out, and it's causing problem. So it is very difficult to stamp out, because they now manufacture it in their own way. So even if you close the routes, then they can just turn to the one that they manufacture within the country. That is the problem.
What would you profile as some of the recommendations that would help to curb this menace, having gotten that experience when you were investigating this menace? What would you profile some of what we should do right now?
Well, that has to do with a lot of things, with the government. It has to do with NGOs. It has to do with individuals, and I think it has to take multiple approach in trying to curb KUSH. The law enforcement part is there, which is very important and it's needed, but also there must be some ways to bring out the people that are into KUSH. I will tell you, some of the KUSH takers or users are actually victims. They're actually victims, and you need to bring out ways to get them out of it, and also to try and cut the chain, because there are people that have not taken KUSH, but they are prone to taking it. So you also have to think about them. You can fight or try to, do all the arrests to the ones that are selling, the ones that are taking now, but if you don't also cut the chain to the people that are prone to taking KUSH, then you will have new KUSH users, and the trend will continue. So for me, I think it's a multiple approach, not only thinking of the law enforcement part of it, but also think of conventional ways that you can try to get these people out of it, over the time, and also cut down the chain for the new people that will come to take KUSH, not to have the access. Change their minds. Tell them sensitization, awareness. Tell them what is the effects, what can happen to them if they go into this drug. And I would say not only focusing on KUSH, because like I said earlier, these people are not all of a sudden come and take KUSH. There are people that have been on other drugs, and they are progressing as the drugs high is progressing with them. So also we have to focus on other drugs as well, because the people that are using drugs like marijuana, like tramadol now, that are not into KUSH, these are people that are prone to join the KUSH stream. So we also have to think of how to, cut that chain from those people, and then also like what the job that Pierre was doing in my film, trying to go out to those communities, because you have communities around this country that are actually a community that when you go there, you see it, and you know that yes, this is a community that is prone to drugs, KUSH, and all these things. And Pierre was doing a very good job. I commend him for that, going there, talking to them, establishing contact, and then bring out people. Unfortunately, if you watch the film, there is a lady that I was talking to, and she was telling me how her friends had died behind KUSH, and she doesn't want to die. I'll tell you, she actually died behind KUSH few months after the film came out.
Thank you very much, Tyson. It's been a pleasure. Few things, Mr. Minister, that Tyson raised in his submission. how do we cut the supply chain?
Yeah, Samuel, I commend Tyson here as per his documentary 2021, right?
Yes.
And like I said, I commend him, but at the same time, let's give credit where credit is due. The policy, the youth policy, 2020 to 2025, the consultation of the youth policy gives us a clear picture about the challenges young people are facing in this country. One of which has to do with drugs and substance abuse. Yeah, it's as a result of the research, the consultative ways that went through, we got the youth policy. And when you go to page 24, we've identified the problem. What we've done as a government. Yeah, the same 2020, September 2020, early 2020, we recruited a consultant, Henrietta Baba. You can't take that away from her. Sereno Lives Matter. We did massive engagement, pay media houses, sell out the dangers, the challenges of young people taking this substance. And apart from that, because it's in the policy, that's why you see our partners, they are implementing the policy. We are here today talking about this substance abuse because government has made tremendous efforts that we need to do more. Yeah? It's as a result of that you have our partners doing that. Go to Caritas. Through the Youth at Risk report, Caritas has got huge funding doing this. Yeah? UNFPA, UNDP, Leone. These institutions, I'll tell you, I'll go through I've got a whole lot that we've supported to send the message. We've been doing our best. But what we are saying, this is just 2021, that video was released. You remember 2021, here International Youth Day, we brought young people that are university students that have been into drugs. It's because of the effort that we're making. When you look at that video, the AIV video,
yes,
young people are asked, how's KUSH? They explain to you, it's because of the awareness raising we've done before. We know we need to do more. We know there are challenges. We know we've done our own, we are doing our own bit. What we are asking as stakeholders in society, we all have roles to play. I always ask the media houses to change the message. Let's change the tone. How many media houses will write, you know your brothers are going down. Why can't you put the kite on the top page, stop taking KUSH, stop abusing XYZ, and live long? Do we need to fail? Tell me where on earth you have a whole panel. We're talking about this for young people to know what we're supposed to do. So what we are asking here is that I listen to Tyson, I've watched the video, go to places like, I share videos with you, all African countries. You don't get a panel like this. It's because the awareness has been there since 2020, 2019, 2018, we've been pushing. What we are saying, you only see these videos today, it's because we've been selling out the wrong messages, yet society keep ignoring the things they're supposed to do. If we are doing our bit as a government, assuming that government has barely 20% to do, society, like my brother Thomas Moore and Mr. Moore was saying, in Sierra Leone, in his quote, he said, when society fails, he has his own ways. There is nemesis. We are saying, when the home fails, like he said, when the home fails, they tend to blame government. Why do you blame government for role that you're supposed to play? But Pekin, originally BLM. Now, bad papa, the born bad Pekin. You have the stories. So what we are saying, change those things, prepare your generation. If you fail to prepare your kids to become good citizens, trust me, when you are old, you don't have those responsible individuals to take care of you. And if you realize what we are going through today, trust me, the price you pay will be so huge. They made mention of, I heard another message, government promised building on human capital. These are just components that nobody will give me data to say you have 500 young people taking KUSH. I want that data. But I will tell you amount of young people that are in school today, amount of young people that are going to university today, amount of young people that are doing TVET today. There are challenges. And let's accept the fact that the youth bulge is here to stay. It's not like a wave, COVID wave that comes after 5-6 months, 1 year, 2 years, they'll go. We have 2/3 of the population is below 35. Let society focus on how do we recalibrate, reproduce, train these young people to become good citizens, like my brother is saying here. So what we are saying, it's a collective effort. You had the young man from ELCAS, from the Judiciary, just by watching that, oh, there's a panel discussion going on that needs to intervene. That tells you how responsible our government is. Otherwise, it's all the way at Shabima. So say, no, let me lend my voice to this discussion. We need to do more. We've done so much, but society needs to take responsibility. We all need to take responsibility and fix the challenge where we're going through today.
All right, gentlemen, we have a minute each for your parting shot as a way of reforming the way forward. What's our message to our fellow young people, and how do we address this? I'll start off with you, Dr. Mansare.
Thank you again, Samuel. To my fellow youths, I want to advise we do our best to stay off this KUSH and any other drugs. I can remember vividly whilst I was doing my rotation in surgery, there was a patient brought in with severe head injury. When we tried to investigate what actually happened, this guy had taken KUSH at Wellington. He walked all his way through to Aberdeen Bridge. That's where he fell off. From Wellington. He fell off all the way. He walked from Wellington all the way to Aberdeen Bridge. He fell off the bridge and he was brought in with severe head injury. He actually died. Did not make it. And most of the accident cases that come in at Connaught, bike accident, most of them when we investigate, probably later we get to know that the bike rider
were on KUSH.
Probably was on KUSH. So please, if you love your life, I want to beg you, do your best to stay off KUSH. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Masari. Mr. Kabo?
Well, I want to send a message to colleague law enforcers for us to step up. We have a lot to offer, and if we don't stand up to the test of time, we will have a society that will not be able to see the best of them in the near future. Right. So let's go by the books, let's go by the law, let's don't change the laws, let's work strictly by the laws and make sure that those who are arrested, those who are found wanting should be brought to book. They should face the full.
Just in 30 seconds, I think earlier in your precursory remark, you talked about the porosity of our borders. What are the plans to secure those points?
Well, we've had engagements on that. Office of National Security is taking the lead. And for now, there is a deployment at the Queen Elizabeth. They call it the SICOP project, for which ONS, the police, drug law enforcement agencies, Transnational Organized Crime, that is TOCO, we're all part of that project. Okay. And we also want to escalate it to the Lungi Airport and also border crossing points to see how best we can mitigate against the flow.
Moses?
Thank you. We need purposeful action. We need purposeful action beyond talks, beyond policy on paper. I always believe that as a nation, we can only do better if we prepare our young generation. The young generation, in them lies the key to unlocking what the older generation were never able to unlock. So we should prioritize that. And I must say at this time, we need collaborative effort. I was expecting that Mr. Abraham Kagbo should be working closely with the police. I don't know how they work together to crack down, to go down to some of these ghettos and do what is necessary. For the ceremony we want to believe, radical action is the way to go. We don't need cozy actions, no talks. What I want now is to say, this is what we're going to do, and we will as the ceremony we want, as an institution which we represent, we're ready to support any action that is about solving this menace, because we don't just want to be the few people who are sane, and we will not be safe at all. We would have the wrong people who would be in authority and who will get this country to go in the very wrong path. So that's it. And I'm happy that Mr. Minister is here.
Yes, Samuel, let me just reiterate this. Under the office of the Chief Minister,
Okay.
we have a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
like 6-7 months ago, the line ministry, the Minister of Health, Minister Internal Affairs, all stakeholders, and now there's a draft national strategy for substance abuse management. We're still engaging, and in that draft, yeah, we're thinking about 3 components to cut down demand reduction, yeah, supply reduction, and at the end of the day, we'll try to reduce the risks and behavior. That is to say, we need every hands on deck. Yeah, what we are saying, you had the story of Tyson. If you take KUSH because if you say it's stress, or because if you say society don't ignore you, you understand? You still, I always tell every young Sierra Leonean, if everybody they tell God thank you, me for tell God thank you 10 million times. Look at me for Musa Komot. Day like today, world sit on my table like this, tell you say no, you not give up my life. You always get a second chance. You always believe in yourself. That self-esteem say no. They go through so many things. Anybody tell you say the path to success na smooth road na lie. I tell people, even for every college, I failure too. All my friends them will all be there at college, they move. At the end of the day, even when they take me as teacher, as in turn, don't be classmates, as a manager. Yet I give up. Keep your heads up and no say, na one go you work to answer. If anybody tell you say na a smooth ride, no. So what we say na that always do the needful. We parent them for land, for take care for picking them, teach them their values and the way them don't teach you with mama them, so that once more everybody go responsible for your destiny. Nobody, not government, not even you are the driver of your own destiny. Now you get your vehicle. Right. Yeah. On that note, I tell everybody, thank you. At the act that if you grab my money, you just grab, say, you post Facebook, stop KUSH, stop drug abuse. You know the impact they make. So the act that we all get a responsibility. Follow we send the message. Follow we change the story. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure having all 4 of you here this evening, and to all those of you who watched us on TV, listened to us on radio, followed us on our different social media platforms. Thank you very much for being part of the conversation. In case you missed a part of this, a repeat of it comes up on Thursday, 10 p.m. But a fresh edition of the show AYV on Sunday returns, same station, same time next week. Until we meet again, the show has been AYV on Sunday. My name is Samuel Wives Bangura, and up next is our AYV Primetime News. Until then, take care of yourself and have a lovely night.